What a woman truly desires lies in a place money can't reach. You stretch your budget for her birthday to buy that brand name wallet. For every date, you search for the perfect restaurant and make all the reservations. You work hard, you're responsible, and you pour as much money as you can into making her happy. And yet, in the end, she's stolen away by a guy who makes you think, why on earth him? After everything I did for her, why won't she choose me? Maybe somewhere along the way, you bought into the idea that women are weak for money. But does that mean even the money you worked so hard to earn isn't enough? It's easy to dismiss that question by saying, women are driven by emotion. But I want you to think a little more deeply about it. The German psychologist Erich Fromm once said, "Love is a capacity, not an object." In other words, it's not about what you have, but about what emotions you can give. Your very way of being is what holds the power of attraction. What a woman truly loves isn't the money itself, but something far more ambiguous, yet irresistible, that lies beyond it. It's something that can't be explained by logic, yet women are unconsciously and powerfully drawn to it. It's something that, before they know it, dominates their heart and makes them want it so much that reason can no longer stop them. If you continue to give and serve without understanding this, you'll only end up as the nice guy or the convenient guy. So today, drawing on the wisdom of great thinkers, we're going to unravel the things a woman loves more than money from 4 different perspectives. And the best part is, these are things that every single one of you might already possess. By listening to this, you will discover the real reason you haven't been chosen and find the hints you need to become a man who is naturally magnetic. First, let's start with a fundamental premise before we dive into the things she loves more than money. The idea that women are weak for money. How many times have you heard that phrase? It's true that men with financial stability are often popular, so it's understandable why you might want to believe in the simple equation that if I earn more, I'll be more attractive. And to be fair, there is some truth to it. We can't deny that some women are attracted to material wealth. The problem, however, is misunderstanding that to be the entire picture. For example, no matter how expensive a gift you give her, it doesn't guarantee she will desire you with all her heart. On the other hand, you also see women who fall deeply for men who seemingly have nothing. Why does this reversal happen? The key is whether the means the money can satisfy a certain emotion within her. What a woman truly wants is not the money itself. It's the emotional satisfaction that follows, a sense of security, comfort, and trust in the future. These are things that are hard to put into words but leave a lasting mark on the heart. In other words, the important thing isn't whether you have money, but how you make her feel when she's with you. If you don't realize this distinction and just keep piling up superficial value, you will never reach her heart. And this dynamic is becoming even more pronounced today. Why? Because the very foundation of romance is changing with the times. In the past, a man's financial power was a woman's security and guarantee for the future. But today, we live in an era where women work, earn their own living, and have the power to support themselves. With this shift, the priority of material value has declined, and in its place, invisible values are now in high demand. For example, you see men with good incomes and decent looks who are still treated lightly by women. On the other hand, there are men with no special specs who are intensely desired. What creates this difference is whether or not you hold mental leadership. Modern romance is a quiet, invisible battle for emotional dominance. Who can move the other's heart? Who can remain calm and maintain their own center? In this day and age, how you handle emotions has, in some ways, become a far more powerful weapon than your annual income or your appearance. So, what does it mean to handle emotions? Let's start by talking about the core of it all: emotional stability. Thing number 1. A woman loves more than money: the power of silence. Generally speaking, women are strongly attracted to men who are emotionally stable. But why? It's because human instinct carries a contradiction. It seeks both security and the freedom of not being controlled. A woman might say she wants a kind man, but in reality, she may unconsciously perceive a man who is too gentle or one who immediately shows all his emotions as unreliable? For instance, if you were facing a difficult situation, who would you trust more? The person who panics, or the person who calmly accepts the situation and takes action? This is the unwavering sense of security that women seek in a man. He doesn't explode with emotion, but he's not indifferent either. He possesses a quiet strength within. He is like a lighthouse, standing unshaken in the middle of a storm. Emotional stability doesn't mean being emotionless. There's no such thing as a human who doesn't feel anger or anxiety. What's important is your attitude, how you process those feelings, and how you present them to the outside world. The ancient Roman philosopher Seneca said, "He who is ruled by anger is the weakest of all." A demeanor that isn't swayed by emotion will undoubtedly enhance a man's appeal. And what's fascinating is that when you have this stability, her own emotions begin to settle as well. Emotions are contagious. Anxiety and restlessness have a strange way of transferring to the person you're with. That's why, when a man is stable, a woman feels, "I can feel safe when I'm with him." Now, the next question is the contradiction. Why are some women not attracted to stability alone? In fact, another core tenet of romance is hidden right there. So next, let's talk about the emotional fluctuations that women are instinctively drawn to. Thing number 2, a woman loves more than money. The allure of the unknown. While emotionally stable men are preferred, men who are too stable get boring. Have you ever felt that contradiction? Here lies another key to moving a woman's heart. While women seek stability, they are also strongly drawn to a sense of anticipation and emotional fluctuation. It's like the crispness of the air after an occasional storm, which feels more refreshing than a sky that is sunny every single day. Emotions are stimulated by change, and that stimulation gets carved deep into the heart. For example, imagine a man who always replies quickly, speaks politely, and immediately adjusts his schedule for her. At first, it might seem impressive, but gradually, she'll start to feel, "This person is always within my grasp." And from that moment on, her interest begins to fade. In psychology, there's a principle that the human brain reacts more strongly to uncertainty than to certainty. The reason gambling and romance are so similar is that the possibility of a reward, not the guarantee of one, stimulates the brain's reward system. In other words, as long as a woman feels she hasn't completely gotten you, her emotions remain tied to you. Now, this doesn't mean being cold is the answer. The key is a balance between what you show and what you hide. Instead of bearing all your emotions, create moments where you deliberately choose silence. Even if you want to see her, take a little distance. This gap creates an impulse within her to know more. To reignite her feeling of chasing you, you need the courage to intentionally take one step back. So, what kind of man can naturally control even the timing of when to pull back? Next, let's talk about the power to control the flow of emotion itself. Thing number 3, a woman loves more than money. The power of emotional control. Are you controlled by her emotions, or do you control the atmosphere? This difference largely determines who holds the power in a relationship. Women may not say it out loud, but they are constantly testing the strength of your emotions. This can manifest as deliberately delaying a reply or suddenly acting cold. A silent test may be repeated quietly. Can he withstand this instability? How far is he willing to go for my feelings? At this moment, a certain number of men make a mistake. They react immediately, explain themselves in a long message, apologize, and beg for understanding. But this is counterproductive. The sight of you being unable to control your emotions makes you appear unstable in her eyes, and her attraction plummets. The philosopher Schopenhauer said, "He who is swayed by his emotions is like a man in the hands of another." In other words, a person who cannot even control his own emotions cannot possibly capture the heart of another. So, what should you do? What you need is the power not to react, the power to be silent, to wait, to not force her to understand. When a wave of emotion comes, you don't get swept away by it. You maintain your own pace. For example, when she's in a bad mood, you don't always have to pry for a reason. By deliberately not asking and just sitting there calmly beside her, you can sometimes make her feel This man is unshakable. I feel safe. Of course, not every woman will be satisfied by someone just sitting silently beside her. Some might think, why aren't you asking me what's wrong? But the essence isn't about the act of asking itself. It's about the posture of being composed and having you. The attitude of not rushing, not panicking, and not getting caught up in the pace of her emotions. This quiet strength is the key to satisfying her inner need for security. The power of emotional control is not a feigned strength. It is like a deep well, quiet, and with the power to calm the hearts of those who touch it. And it is this power that quietly stirs a woman's instincts. Thing number 4. A woman loves more than money. The power to inspire growth. Romance isn't just about healing and security. Sometimes a woman is drawn to a partner who makes her feel, when I meet this person, for some reason, I want to try harder. I'm made aware of my own smallness or weaknesses, but strangely, I don't feel like I'm being put down. In other words, a woman is drawn to a partner who makes her feel, I can grow when I'm with this person. A partner who is only kind offers security, but no future. The person a woman is truly drawn to is someone who makes her imagine a future. He'll tell her hard truths, but his words are filled with love, and he believes in her growth. That's why, even if it's hard to hear, she can't leave him. But don't misunderstand. This isn't about educating her or guiding her from a superior position. It's about the fact that because you yourself are continuously growing, you naturally inspire the woman you're with. For example, the sight of you genuinely working toward your goals, the attitude of diligently continuing small efforts, that example makes her think, I want to move forward more too. That influence moves a woman's heart deeply. So, a man who brings out her growth isn't a man who does something special. He is a man who is serious about his own life. In him, a woman sees a future, trust, and the possibility of her own transformation. We've talked about these 4 things that women love, but what kind of man naturally possesses these powers? Next, let's talk about what he looks like in concrete terms. The man who makes a woman think. He's different. So, what kind of person naturally embodies these 4 qualities? What they have in common is that they are men cloaked in a quiet strength. However, this isn't the commonly mentioned calmness or solidity. He doesn't rush. He doesn't flatter. He doesn't excessively show off. And yet, there's a certain pressure, a presence that hangs in the air around him. It's a feeling of him controlling the space with his own breath, without being swept away by the emotions of others. It's a strange gravitational pull, as if he isn't wishing to be chosen, yet everyone around him is drawn to him before they know it. For example, a man with whom silence doesn't feel awkward, a person who doesn't force conversation, but whose mere presence sets the mood. Around such a man, people naturally keep a respectful distance, and a woman unconsciously feels, this man is different from the others. They don't give off a vibe of wanting to be chosen, and that, in reverse, rattles a woman's heart, making her wonder, why isn't he obsessed with me? This is what psychology calls cognitive dissonance. Cognitive dissonance is the mental discomfort that arises when a person holds contradictory beliefs or behaviors, and the mind's tendency to try and resolve that tension. In other words, when a man she thought she could easily have doesn't act as expected, her mental balance is disrupted. This disruption, in turn, makes her intensely aware of him. Attraction is not a flashy decoration. It's something that seeps out from within. The more you try to show it, the more it's lost. That's why men who get chosen don't try to prove their own worth. And because they don't try to prove it, a powerful presence is born. So what's the difference between men like that and men who are just trying to fake that vibe? Next, let's talk about why the act is always seen through. Why the act falls apart. A man who possesses quiet strength never tries to show it off. His mere presence exudes a sense of security and attraction. But the moment you try to imitate this, a strange feeling of artificiality is born. The man who is acting versus the man from whom it emanates women are surprisingly sensitive to this difference. For example, let's say you decide to become a man with composure, so you intentionally delay your replies or pretend not to be interested. No matter how cleverly you behave, for some reason, a woman will notice and think, he's trying too hard. Why is that? Because humans react more strongly to nonverbal cues, your gaze, your breath, the slight tremor in a moment of silence than they do to words. In psychology, there's something called Mehrabian's law. It states that the content of what you say is less impactful than your facial expressions, your tone of voice, and how you use silence in shaping another person's impression of you. In short, true quiet strength is revealed not in words, but in unconscious behavior, and that is where it becomes clear whether it's real or not. For example, a man who is acting calm might suddenly raise his voice in an unexpected moment, or get flustered by a read receipt on a message and send a long text. In that instant, his mask falls off, and the woman's interest quietly fades away. On the other hand, a man who truly possesses quiet strength isn't acting in the first place. When a wave of emotion comes, he accepts it as it is, makes no excuses, and just quietly lets it pass. Seeing this, a woman feels, this man is unshakable, and she is drawn to him. Schopenhauer said, a person's true nature is revealed in silence. A person whose silence carries weight, even without decorating himself with words, will be recognized as authentic. Is your silence light, or does it have the weight to quietly capture another's heart? And finally, let's talk about the greatest weapon that only an authentic man possesses. It is the power to walk away at any time. Because you have this power, a woman cannot control you, and she will remain forever drawn to you. The power to walk away. A woman is instinctively attracted to a man who can walk away at any time. This isn't coldness. It's a quiet resolve. The posture of not clinging to her even if you hurt her feelings, of being able to leave, evokes the emotion of, I might lose him. People get bored of those they can control, and instead, they obsess over beings they cannot. The reason a man who might leave is more memorable than a man who gives everything is because of this dynamic. This structure applies not just to romance, but to all human relationships. For example, the person who suddenly disappears is more intriguing than the person who contacts you every day. You start wondering, what are they doing now? And check their social media. Have you ever had that experience? In other words, a person who has the potential to disappear unconsciously becomes a special existence. However, the power to walk away is not about cutting off your emotions. It's about, I love you, but I am not dependent on you. If I must, I can leave. This stance earns a woman's respect and creates a healthy tension. The philosopher Erich Fromm said, love is the courage to give freedom. In other words, it is the stance of not dominating that fosters trust and attraction. And one more thing. Leaving should never be a punishment for the other person. It should be a quiet choice made to protect your own value. So, how can you change? The answer is simple. Stop doing the things that felt wrong or that you never really wanted to do in the first place. Serving her just to be chosen by her. Sending long texts out of anxiety. Keeping a smile on your face even when you're angry. Forcing yourself to act cheerful. I'm not saying all of these are bad, but these actions might be unconscious attempts to prove your own worth. Yet, the more you try to prove it, the more your lack of composure seeps out. That's why you must let these things go. Be the man who is quiet, who doesn't cling, who is unshakable. Just by doing that, your entire way of being will change dramatically. Romance is not about techniques. It's about what kind of man you are. Don't try to act right now. Instead, first, try to hold the power to walk away in your heart. When you become quiet and centered, her attitude will naturally change as well. A person with their own axis changes the very air around them just by being there. So, what is the one behavior you will let go of, starting right now?